All right, we are live on Instagram. We are live on Facebook, and welcome to the podcast listeners. This is the PT on Ice Daily Show brought to you by the Institute of Clinical Excellence. It's Wednesday, y'all. It's Jerry on Ice, where we talk about all things older adults. My name is Dustin Jones. I'm one of two lead faculty within the older adult division, teaching modern management of the older adult essential foundations and advanced concepts. Those are two online courses, and then our live two-day course as well. Jeff Musgrave, good morning. It's Wednesday. It means it's also Hump Day. Hump Day Hustle, that email that goes out to most of you all at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time was just sent. Awesome links in that email, especially COVID-19 related, which many of you all are feeling this in terms of where we're at within this pandemic. You know, a lot of different physical therapy departments across different settings are kind of being swamped with folks that are recovering from this virus. So some very helpful information in there. Before we get into today's talk, I do want to mention our Essential Foundations course sold out. It starts today. Super excited to get that cohort running. Our next one is going to be on March 3rd. So if you didn't get that last spot, March 3rd, that registration is up on the site right now. And then our Advanced Concepts course starts next Wednesday, which is the 13th of January. Those are just for folks that have passed Essential Foundations and they're working their way towards that CERT MMOA. All right, today's topic, 3 lessons we can learn from hashtag Hospice PT. 3 lessons we can learn from Hospice PT. I should preface this conversation that I can literally count the amount of individuals that I've treated that have been under hospice on 2 hands. I mean, it hasn't been more than 10 patients that I've worked with. However, when I think of some of the most impactful individuals that I've worked with, most of them have been on hospice. What's up, Zach? And why is that? You know, I think about what some of those interactions were like, how that informed me as a clinician, but then also just as a human being, as a husband, as a father, just impacts you on such a deep level. So I feel like I want to talk about this on the Institute of Clinical Excellence show because I think there's a lot of lessons that we all can learn. Whether you're Zach Long working at Onward in Charlotte, seeing a lot of individuals that are trying to maximize their performance and get out of pain, he can learn a lot from Hospice PT. Jeff Musgrave, who's doing outpatient orthopedics in Lexington, Kentucky, he can learn a lot. Many of you all in different settings. I don't care what setting you're in. There are some things that we can learn about hospice. So I want to share what I've learned, knowing that I'm no hospice expert. I've just been dramatically impacted by individuals that were on hospice. So let's get some definitions clear because this is always confusing in the world of hospice in terms of what means what and how is it funded and all that fun stuff. I want to start off with just the general definition of hospice. If you look at the word in Webster's dictionary, hospice is a refuge for a weary traveler. Refuge for a weary traveler. And if you have worked with an individual that was receiving care under hospice, that is such a great definition, that these individuals that have been on such a difficult path through this medical system and on life, they need a place of refuge, a place of comfort, a place to receive care because they're weary. They are weary and tired and fatigued, and we can be in a good role to do that. Now, in terms of the specifics, I'm going to mention some things that are referenced in an awesome article that I'm going to link on the Facebook video. So if you're on Instagram, go over to Facebook. If you're on the podcast, check out the Facebook post as well. It's titled Hospice, Rehabilitation in Reverse. And it was out of the Indian Journal of Palliative Care. And there's, some contextual differences from the Indian standpoint versus the U.S. standpoint, but there's a lot of crossover, and this article is very relevant for you. So when they're talking about hospice, they say the provision of a comforting and caring environment for the patient who has traveled through the maze of modern medical technology and has recognized that the limits of technology preclude a cure and perhaps even a comfortable existence. The patient may then choose to follow a palliative course of treatment rather than an aggressive course and enter what one hospice has named the hospice way of living. What I've seen is typically when folks their life expectancy is typically less than 6 months, then there will be a hospice consultation, maybe sometimes before then. And then the decision is made to receive hospice care. And so once they say yes, they are under that hospice umbrella, and hospice gets paid a daily rate to take care of these individuals. And a lot of times those agencies, those hospice agencies, will divvy up those funds based on what is needed. And that is a big reason why many of you all probably have not seen a ton of patients that have been on hospice. Physical therapy is dramatically underutilized in that particular environment or that setting. I remember, probably 4 or 5 patients that I can think of that I was trying to see someone beyond the third or fourth visit, and I had to, you know, write a 14 paragraph response of justifying of why they needed physical therapy services. They can be pretty tight in terms of how many a lot of visits that you can get. That's not the case everywhere, but I think that's the experience that most of us have had. So if you have not worked with someone in hospice, that's probably the reason why. For many of us that have worked with individuals that are on hospice, typically we're home health clinicians. We were seeing someone, they transferred that care over to hospice, and then that hospice agency contracted out physical therapy to another agency or you. There are some agencies that employ their own physical therapists, but I would not say that's very common. I'd love your all's thoughts. So if you have different opinions or thoughts to add to this conversation, Instagram, leave a comment, or Facebook as well. I'd love to get your thoughts there. So that's kind of the setting, all right? So people typically life expectancy less than 6 months. The goal is a lot of care. It's a lot of comfort. It's a lot of relieving pain and maximizing dignity. And so in that setting, there are lots of healthcare providers. And we are a huge portion of that, even though we're underutilized. So let's get to the good stuff. The 3 lessons learned if you are working with someone in the hospice setting and how you can translate that to the other settings that you may work in. The first one is when you are in that role of a hospice PT, you are in the pursuit of dignity. You are in the pursuit of dignity. Dignity, if we were to define that, that's a right of a person to be valued and respected for their own sake. Now, when we think about many geriatric settings, dignity is often stripped. Decisions are made for these individuals. They are put in different situations where comfort and safety is the utmost priority, and decisions are made that can ultimately strip their own dignity. And we've seen what the result is. If you spent any time in a skilled nursing facility, for example, that's just one example, and in home health as well, you see the result of that, of someone losing their sense of self-worth, their independence, their dignity, and the result of that can be that lack of drive, that lack of purpose, and ultimately further functional decline. We want to be in the pursuit of dignity. Now, I say that because often when we're working with individuals, our main goal is to either relieve their pain, improve their SPPB score, their timed up and go, or improve their lower extremity strength, or whatever physical measure or domain that may be. However, those efforts could be futile if they are not connected to that person's dignity and sense of self-worth and identity. An increase in someone's 5-time sit to stand or an improvement in their tug scores does not necessarily we're going to improve their dignity of their life. A great example of this is the first patient I've ever worked with that was under hospice. This was in Columbus, Ohio. I was doing home health, and then I got the call from the scheduler that says, "Hey, we got a new eval today. Can you go see this person on the south side of town? They're on hospice." I said, "Sure, yeah, I've got a spot. I'll go down and see him." I had no clue what hospice meant. They didn't fill me in on any details. All I knew was, maybe a lecture or two in PT school that I'd probably already forgotten at that point. And I go and see this individual, do my typical home health assessment, decide that they would benefit tremendously from quadriceps strengthening and working on their sit to stand. And I brought in my light kettlebell and we started knocking out sit to stands, squats, did loaded carries, tried to compress that work to really improve the kind of the fitness benefit of that session. It was awesome. Awesome session from my standpoint. The hospice nurse comes in after me, at the end of our session, and she pulls me aside after as I'm walking out and I'm saying, "Bye, I'll see you, next week, blah, blah, blah," and, just kind of making my way out. She walks out with me and says, "Hey, that was great. That was awesome to see her doing all that stuff. Good job. However, all she really wants to do is be able to watch Days of Our Lives. That's all. That's it." So you may want to cut that out. And this was a very seasoned veteran hospice nurse that said this in a very approachable manner. I didn't take offense to it, and it really made me reflect. And then when I think about how that session or that eval went, I didn't necessarily dig into what what really made this woman tick? What was she wanting to maintain in terms of some of those activities that she can remain independent in? What things does she find a lot of value in and worth and dignity? And being able to hold that remote and go to channel 3 at 12:30 every day or 1 p.m., whatever time it is for Days of Our Lives, is a big part of her dignity. I didn't perceive that, and my interventions didn't really tailor to that. And so even though she may have gotten stronger, it didn't necessarily improve the quality of her life as much as another intervention could. And that was a very powerful moment for me, that I need to be in the pursuit of dignity. And I think for you all that are not in hospice, you're in the same boat. You are trying to tailor your interventions addressing particular issues that are attacking that person's sense of self-worth, dignity, and then independence as well. A lot of times that is pain. A lot of times that is function and performance, and we're going to improve those. But sometimes it's not, especially in the world of geriatrics. Sometimes they just want to be able to watch Days of Our Lives. Atul Gawande says, he has an awesome quote in an interview with Krista Tippett. He says, our goal is typically safety, survival, and health. Or if you're in the PT world, our goal is improving quadriceps strength, SPPB, and 5 times sit to stand, while their goal, aka the patient's goal, may be to be able to read a book in silence. And we need to dig in and be very, very clear on that. We are in the pursuit of dignity. That's the first one. Second one, assessing is a mindset, not an event. Assessing is a mindset, not an event. If you get into the world of hospice, you're going to hear the term rehab in reverse. Rehab in reverse. So this is first coined by, from what I could tell, Briggs et al. In 1999. So in the Home Health Section's quarterly report, there's an article about hospice, and they use this term rehab in reverse. This was echoed by Alex Alexander and Nikki Arnold as well. And basically what that means is you may start to see someone and they're on a single point cane, for example, on the first visit. And then you go to see them, maybe in 3 or 4 days, and they've had a decline. And now, well, crap, that single point cane isn't safe. Now I have to, get orders for a wheeled walker and then train that patient up on the wheeled walker and also the caregivers as well. And then maybe the third visit, there's more decline. You have to adjust something else. And so it's rehab in reverse, but you're always assessing. Every visit, there's going to be some change or some difference in their capacity and their independence in these different activities. And so it forces you to hold your plan of care very loosely in your hands and be able to adjust on the fly and constantly be looking and observing and assessing in every single session, not just an assessment visit. And I think this is very important for all of us, that we don't wait till day 30 if you're in home health, or 2 weeks if you're an outpatient, for example, or whatever your set assessment visit is, that we're not waiting until then to assess. We're always assessing. We're always seeing how our interventions are impacting these individuals. What is different in terms of their performance? What do we need to adjust? Is this current setup, whether it's an assistive device or environmental setup, is this working for them right now? Because it may not next time I'm in here. We're constantly assessing. Assessing is a mindset, not an event. All right, 1, pursuit of dignity. 2, assessing is a mindset, not an event. 3, you are more than your hands and your TheraBand. Man, this is a big one. I think a lot of home health clinicians feel this anyway, but especially if you work with individuals in hospice, you quickly learn that sometimes the most dramatic way you can impact someone's quality of life is not necessarily by bringing in your TheraBand or your kettlebell, dumbbell, or whatever it may be. It may not be using your hands and some of those lovely manual therapy techniques that you have to reduce pain. It may literally be just moving a dresser over 4 inches so they can use it for a handhold to get out of bed. It may literally be calling someone to try and get a bed rail for this individual. Or it may be talking to the caregiver to give them as much support as possible. Sometimes those things are going to be a bigger impact in that patient's quality of life and their sense of dignity and self-worth than you performing your typical physical therapy. And for some of you, that may be hard to hear. And then others are probably thinking, well, how can I bill for that? Which is a good question. However, we really got to step out of that box and think, how can we pursue dignity with this individual? And it may look a little different for each person. This was a tough lesson for me. I wanted to get everyone as strong as possible. Old, not weak, right? I've been trying to live that out since I became, a PT, but there are times where that is not necessarily the goal, and we need to be humble and acknowledge that. You are more than your hands and your TheraBand. Most home health clinicians are saying preach it right now. They understand, they get it. But for some of you all in different settings that don't have that glimpse into someone's life, like a home clinician or someone in hospice, you need to see what you can provide these individuals. You have an amazing skill set to be able to impact them in so many different ways beyond your hands and beyond that piece of resistance equipment. All right. Pursuit of dignity. Assessing is a mindset, not an event, and then you are more than your hands and your TheraBand. These are big lessons that I learned in the world of hospice, and that have influenced every interaction I've had with older adults since. And so whether you are an outpatient acute care SNF, I don't care. These things can be influential into how you better serve older adults. If you have some experience in hospice, if you want to contribute to this conversation, please go to Instagram or the Facebook post of this video and comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts and get a good conversation of someone that has a lot of experience in this. Like I said before, I'm no expert here. I've just seen a couple handful of patients that were on hospice, and it just impacted me tremendously, and wanted to speak to that. So that's all I got. Let's engage in the comments. I appreciate y'all. Make sure you check out that Hump Day Hustle email if you're not on that, ptonice.com, and then click on Hump Day Hustle. Otherwise, I'll talk to y'all in a couple weeks. Have a good one.
Hey, thanks for tuning in to the PT on Ice Daily Show. If you enjoyed this content, head on over to iTunes and leave us a review. And be sure to check us out on Facebook and Instagram at the Institute of Clinical Excellence. If you're interested in getting plugged into more ICE content on a weekly basis while earning CEUs from home, check out our virtual ICE online mentorship program at ptonice.com. While you're there, sign up for our Hump Day Hustling newsletter for a free email every Wednesday morning with our top 5 research articles and social media posts that we think are worth reading. Head over to ptonice.com and scroll to the bottom of the page to sign up.